Regan and welcome to the start of another reading vlog. This reading vlog I am very excited about because I'm gonna be reading one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I also feel like so many of you guys have been anticipating this book as well, so I thought, you know, let's make a reading vlog so we can all discuss together. Obviously though, this will be non-spoiler, but without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the book I hope to read. That's right, friends. The book I will be reading from beginning to end in this vlog is Leigh Bardugo's The Familiar. This is a historical fantasy story set in the golden age of Spain. And we follow our main character who works for this very prestigious family, though, who has dreams of being more powerful. And one day her mistress notices a servant who has pretty strong magical abilities. And so they begin to use this servant to get more favor from the king, but it kind of gets everyone wrapped up into the dark underbelly of this time and place. I mean, this cover is truly one of my favorite covers I've seen in such a long time. So I'm gonna be reading this. I'm so excited. This book is stunning, truly stunning, and full of so many different concepts and ideas that I feel like I'm gonna love. Historical fantasy is like one of my favorite genres, so I'm so thrilled to be reading this. In fact, I'm so excited about this book. I think I'm gonna go sit down, put the faux fireplace on for some like gothic ambiance and start it. And then I'm gonna get working on dinner. I definitely need to work on getting the house in order. Things have been a little chaotic. We've had various events, family-related events, kind of back to back, but we're gonna rein it back in. We're gonna rein it back in. Soon I hope to be embracing Matilda's energy that she is exuding off, which I love. I must say the first couple chapters have been pretty good so far. I'm in the midst of putting dinner together. It's an easy one. Clay's at the grocery store getting a rotisserie chicken and some other groceries. I say it's an easy one, but I literally burnt my carrots the first time. So I put new carrots in the oven because obviously those are not so great. But I'm also roasting some potatoes, which are just about done, and I steamed some broccoli. So there we go. And dinner is served. Alrighty, we're snuggled up. I'm gonna read The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I didn't read too much before I made dinner. You can see my French fry bookmark. But now I'm gonna sit down now and get very serious. Hello, good morning. I've just been caffeinating and I have been reading The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I have read 100 pages and I'm so happy to say I'm really liking this book. It took me a minute, but I really feel like I have fallen into the story, into the characters, and I am like, I cannot wait to read more of this book. But let's take a step back and chat about what this book is about. So this is set during the golden age of Spain. So it's like peak conquistador, it's peak armada. It's also peak like economic exploitation and also religious subjugation within this time period. So there's a lot of people looking to make as much money as possible, but it's also a very dangerous time for a lot of different people alike. So do keep that in mind. So in the story, we're introduced to our main character, Louisa, and Louisa works as a scullery maid for a less wealthy kind of upper class family, meaning this upper class family household tries to like fit in and subscribe to the expectations of their class, but they really don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of money to hire a lot of help. They don't have a lot of money to get a lot of food every week. So a lot of it's kind of a mirage that they're trying to present to the outside world. And a lot of times that's sort of failing. Her mistress is named Valentina, and Valentina is very cruel, but she also lives a very sad and meager life herself as sort of a poor, wealthy woman. She can't leave the house at all. She needs to ask her husband permission for everything. Her husband disdains her, doesn't like talking to her. She takes out the frustrations of her life on everyone else, including our main character, Louisa. Louisa herself is fine to work as a maid in this household. She doesn't have a lot of opportunity to get a better household working position because of her kind of murky family background. Louisa herself is also hiding a secret, and that is that she has magical abilities and she also has a Jewish heritage, until one day her mistress notices that she has powers and kind of beseeches her to be the nightly entertainment for her failing dinner parties. And this is a really dangerous line for our main character, Louisa, to walk because, again, this is the time period of like heretics and like religious persecution. So one day you might be a walking miracle, a gift from God, and the next day you might be a witch ready to be burned at the stake. And her power is also rooted in her Jewish ancestry, which she has to keep secret at all costs or she will literally be killed. So it's like a very dangerous line she's walking, but Louisa herself is such a great character because she has had this, because of her position, she has really tried to train herself to be, you know, submissive, to not have attention drawn to herself, to just sort of blend into the background. But she also has like a very fiery personality that she tries so hard to repress, but at times it sort of just appears and she sort of makes a decision for herself that she just like couldn't help. Which is kind of how she got herself into this trouble to begin with and made the decision to kind of perform her magic for a group of people. And now she sort of has to deal with those consequences. Those consequences being a very wealthy patron within Spain who's trying to regain the favor of the king through this like competition amongst gifted individuals. Like the king is basically looking for someone who has been touched by the hand of God, and this wealthy patron now knows about our main character Louisa, and she's pulled into this competition, and she's now being trained by this like mysterious undead figure servant who's like connected to this like powerful man. Again, there's like a lot of things happening here, but I'm really intrigued by what's going on. I will say the first part of this book, it takes a minute to kind of get settled in. The writing style is kind of stream of consciousness. You're primarily following Louisa and her day-to-day life, but you will sometimes like bleed into a different perspective, and there's just like a lot of names and characters to kind of wrap your mind around. But once you do, you really, at least for me, I've gotten settled into the story rather quickly. You read from Louisa's point of view, you read from her cousin's point of view, who is this wealthy, beautiful widow character, and they have to pretend like they don't know each other. You read from Valentina, her mistress's point of view, her husband's point of view, this powerful patron's point of view. Like you get so many different perspectives, which really helps color and expand this world and background. I'm really enjoying the historical setting. I really love this dash of magic, and I like how all of these things are sort of informing each other, particularly from the danger element of it. I really like Louisa. I really like that she is so cunning and sharp, and like she's like willing to like go for it. You know what I mean? Like she has faults as a main character. Like she's no passive wilting flower, and when she decides to maybe be passive, it's like a conscious choice, but she will like she'll punch you if she needs to. And I just kind of like this sort of sharpness about her, and I think it makes her not only very rootable but very intriguing, because she's not all pure and good, and now she kind of has to pretend like she's pure and good because she's God's miracle, if you will. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but a lot has happened in the first 100 pages. But I'm really liking this book. I like the character dynamics, the historical setting, writing style, and now that I kind of am past the introduction of everything and I know where we're going next, which is this sort of competition, I'm very curious to see how everything is going to unfold from here. It's like a great mix of like this sort of historical time period and some creepy magic that sort of makes the whole thing very atmospheric, like very shadowy, and there's all this dense brocade and fabric. Like it has this really great ambiance, and I am having a really good time reading this. So far so good. I obviously have quite a bit left. I will keep y'all posted and updated, but I have read 100 pages. Making lunch right now, and I got strawberries at the grocery store, and aren't these so beautiful looking? Unfortunately, I do live in America, and these are some GMO babies if I ever did see one, and they'll probably taste like water, but dang, they look pretty. Round two, I made meat sauce. I made some last week, and I thought, you know, let's roll the tape back. Let's do it again. Dinner is served. Gang's all here. Clay's doing Japan planning for our upcoming trip, but I'm reading The Familiar. I've read to page 140. It's getting good. I feel like this book, I thought it was gonna be more fantasy. Like there's fantasy in it, but it's definitely very historically influenced. Culturally, there's a lot of religious commentary, which I find interesting. A lot of like religious folklore woven into the fantasy element, which I'm liking. And a lot of the character dynamics are so intriguing not only because they're interesting characters, but because of the societal layers that the author clearly paid attention to when crafting this book, which I think is very good so far. But anyway, I'm gonna keep reading. I have my faux fireplace on. We're gonna see how far I go until I inevitably fall asleep. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Up and at 'em, getting a cup of coffee. I'm gonna sit down and read The Familiar. And then I will definitely do a reading update, as I owe y'all one for sure. But first, I must caffeinate. Hi everyone. Good morning. I've just been here caffeinating. Whoop. And I want to film a reading update because I've read 160 pages of The Familiar and I want to give my thoughts and feelings. So I'm really liking this book. And like, where do I even begin? So obviously this book follows our main character, Louisa. And the whole thing is she has this magic, she's been hiding, she has this family heritage, she has been hiding. She has a very naturally defined personality, which she tries to hide because she is a maid. And this book is really trying to be historically accurate in terms of like the social realities of being a servant in this time period. But she's caught. And first she experiences her patron and her employer, her mistress, Valentina, taking advantage of her. But then she catches the eye of someone even more powerful who wants to use her to gain the like attention and associated power of this like even more powerful person who was once the secretary of the King of Spain. So we follow our main character, Louisa. Initially, she's like training to kind of harness her power, kind of prepare for this performance. They're like establishing her identity, establishing her ethos, try to win this competition and best her, you know, the other people who have magical abilities. And she's training with someone named Sant Angel, and he is very much giving like vampire. The thing about this book is it kind of has this edge to it. It has this creepiness, it has this violence, it has this like darkness to the entire thing. And Sant Angel, and I'm sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly, good example of this because he's not giving like hot sparkly vampire vibes. He's giving like I'm cursed. He literally was described as like sharp but basically looks like a walking corpse. Like he's really tall, like he's so thin, and people are like creeped out and scared of him. He's also like basically an assassin. But you see Louisa and him begin to work closely together and they sort of have this interesting banter and suspicion. Louisa's hiding a lot of stuff about herself, particularly things like she can read and write. Obviously her religious cultural past, other stuff like that, and she doesn't want him to catch on because she knows that this is a very dangerous situation. At any point, this new powerful man who's trying to use her could discard her and she could just be done away with at any time. So she needs to stay kind of on top of things and continue to impress, but she doesn't want to give too much of herself away. But they begin to like understand each other in an interesting fashion, and there's definitely like a bit of back and forth there, which I like. Honestly, I think my favorite part about this book is the three women that center the story. Obviously Louisa as our main character, I've talked about her a lot, but there are two other women that are often found in Louisa's orbit. First, her old patroness, Valentina, who there is no there is no love between Louisa and Valentina, and yet they have such an interesting dynamic. And then the other character we follow is, and who's around a lot, is Louisa's cousin, who is the mistress of her new powerful patron, and they pretend to not know each other. The dynamic between all of these women is so interesting because they all fundamentally understand each other in a very specific way, but they're also so cruel to one another because they can hit each other in the most painful ways too, because they understand each other. They understand, you know, what they don't have access to. They understand how they're struggling and toiling underneath this current historical reality. They also don't particularly like each other very much, or they struggle with one another quite a bit. So they're taking like pop shots at each other like often. And I just think that dynamic in this book has honestly been my favorite part. Just like the searing one-liners, and then sometimes the quiet moments of like empathy and understanding, and just the complexity of these relationships are so interesting. Like instead of everyone being like close friends and comrades and confidants, it's not so straightforward, and it really shows that like all of these characters don't feel like they can fully trust anyone or really rely on anyone. Obviously, Louisa and her cousin are much closer than like Valentina, for example, but even their relationship is really complicated because they only have so much protection that they can offer the other, which is just interesting. I don't know. I'm really liking the historical elements of this book. I love the darker atmosphere and tone of this book. The pacing is a little fast. Like this competition sort of is happening rather quickly. I'm only 160 pages in, but I think the concept and ambiance is rather entertaining, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the entire thing is going to continue to progress. This sense of danger and unease persists through this book. Like, we feel the anxiety that Louisa feels as she's walking this line between trying to sell herself off as like this saint from God and not be perceived as like a witch from the devil, and like, I don't know. I feel like Leigh Bardugo has done a really good job like creating the tension, unstableness of this situation that Louisa has found herself in. Like, yes, it's an opportunity for her, but it could also be the end of her. And like, I have no idea like where this book is going to sort of progress from there. And it's interesting and I'm liking it. So I'm obviously gonna read more of this today, but I need to go. I have stuff I need to do, but I wanted to do a reading update because I have read 160 pages and just like everything about, there's just so many like moments, like imagery or like how it's written that just gives this sort of creepy, dark vibe to it. Like she ate this pomegranate and it like ran down her face and it gave like blood gushing down her face energy, you know? And there's just will be these like sudden violent moments that will like really catch you off guard and will really disturb you. I don't know. It just, she's doing a really good job capturing this sort of creepiness that she's trying to infuse into this historical fantasy story. You know what I mean? Hosting a game night tonight with some friends and I've pre-made a dip to reheat later, but I made myself a little sample to eat now. Hold on. I didn't burn it talking to you guys. Oh no, I did it. It's perfect. We're good. Everything's good. Look at that. A little mini sample of my spinach and artichoke dip. I have tortilla chips. I also have Fritos. I also have baguette. I have so many options on which to enjoy. I think I'm gonna do Fritos. That sounds the best to me. And a hearty chips. Those are the scoops, which is needed. Delectable. You know, you gotta do quality control if you're gonna serve food. It's time for some afternoon coffee because I have no self-control and because people are coming over, I need to be awake. You know, which can be a struggle sometimes. So 1 full cup of coffee later, I've passed the 200-page mark and I'm really loving the energy of this book. I love the tension. I love the murkiness. Sorry, I bought some summer boxers. I love the murkiness. I even love the tension and connection that exists between Louisa and Sant'Angelo. He's bad. He's dangerous. He's doing, you know, bad stuff like killing people. He's probably magical. He seems to be undead or immortal. It's giving vampire vibes without being like directly a vampire. And yet I'm like, every girl needs a protector. And I'm kind of into it. And I'm kind of into the energy being a little sharper, a little more like obsessed, a little more like, it's not rainbows and butterflies. It's not poetry. It's like, it's a little darker than that, you know? But I feel like it matches the style of the book. And I've passed the 50% mark, so I'm also feeling quite good about that. Plan to read more tonight, but I need to get the house ready because people are coming over and it's a little messy at the moment, so we're gonna do some cleaning. But I'm happy I was able to get some more reading in. Good morning. We're doing a little breakfast egg cooking in this house. Should be delish. And breakfast is served. Hey everyone, happy Saturday. I'm in the midst of having a very relaxing, low-key Saturday. Woke up, ran some errands, made breakfast as you saw, but now we're gonna do a reading update of The Familiar, and then I'm gonna make myself a sweet treat, which I'm so excited about. I read another 60 pages of The Familiar, so I'm on page 262 of a book that's about 380 pages, so I'm definitely kind of in the, not the home stretch, but I'm in kind of the third act of this book, if you will. I'm really enjoying the story. I feel like all of the elements that Leigh Bardugo is balancing, she's doing quite a good job at. Vibe-wise, this would be an excellent fall read. Like, read it any time of year, but it definitely has an ambiance and a darkness to it that I really appreciate. Something I always enjoy quite a bit when authors do like historical fantasy is when they take some of the real horrifying, creepy, disturbing moments from our own history and then entwine it into something that's specific or more fantasy leaning. And I feel like Leigh Bardugo is doing a great job with that here. It's not just referencing the Spanish political reality of the time, but also a lot of like the religious imagery in this. She's doing such a great job doing like a little bit of a religious horror moment. And I apparently, maybe it comes from me being a bad Catholic, but I love like religious horror aesthetic. I just think it's such an interesting, disturbing mix of things, and it's creating just like really great ambiance within this book. I also just really like our main character, Louisa. This is Louisa's story. It's a story about like seizing chances, but it's also really a story about ambition. Louisa is not someone who ever wanted to keep her head down. She was always looking for an opportunity to see something more for herself, and she's not afraid to hurt others to get it. Like, I still like her. I still think she's a good person, but she's not that like typical heroine and kind of a story who's like 100% good and like all of those things. Like, she's much more complicated than that. And you also see that complexity in the relationship that's formed between her and the main male lead. Their dynamic is really good. It's really juicy. Their back and forth is great. There's definitely some romance in this book, which I feel like has been balanced quite well. The author, I feel like, has paced it well to where the tension was entertaining and then kind of the progression of things did make sense, but it's also not like the star of the show. It's important and it's significant, but like there's other stuff at play. I've already talked a lot about how the female relationships in this book are so interesting, and I'm really appreciating that. And then obviously at the heart of the story, really it's the second half of this book, has been this religious competition where one miracle maker above them all is trying to be picked to be presented to the king, which inherently is a very dangerous job. So meeting the other competitors, the different trials that are happening, the magic at play, people are like trying to stab each other in the back. It's all very intoxicating, and I just feel like the vibe, the aesthetic, the concept of this book is quite successful, and I'm looking forward to finishing it. And I think also because we get to follow not just Louisa, who's our main character, but other characters too. They sort of blend into the story. I just really feel like the author, Leigh Bardugo, is able to, world building isn't the right word, but like character building, context building pretty seamlessly by adding smoothly additional POVs within this book and story. And so some of the imagery is just like really nice. And I'm liking it a lot, so we're gonna keep reading, but first, I'm gonna make a baked good. Hi, so my baked good I'm making are these Wishbone Kitchen, like biscuit meats muffin situation. I couldn't get all the exact ingredients, but it just sounded too good, so we're gonna give it a try ourselves. So, let's get cooking. My lemon sugar has been combined, and it smells very good. All right, now we add flour. 2 cups cake flour, which I did buy this recipe. I don't have the right liners, but we're trying our best over here. Like 1.5 scoops. Verdict is, these are actually quite tasty. Clay and I have each had 2 each. They're really moist and not too sweet, which I like. I used wild blueberries for this recipe. I think next time I'll use blackberries or raspberries to have more of a tart, berry forward flavor. But I'm definitely gonna make these later again this week because I have more buttermilk to use up. But yeah, these were super easy. I will link, if I don't, somebody yell at me, the recipe down below. And now I'm going to rot on the couch for a little while. I'm gonna read more of The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I have the faux fireplace on for ambiance. Clay and I are gonna get some takeout Chinese food, I think, for dinner tonight. watch Hospital Playlist. It's been weeks since I've watched Hospital Playlist. It's just wrong. So we're gonna watch some of that tonight and I can't wait. Catch up on Summer House, just continue to rot. I've been rotting on the couch all day. I haven't checked in a lot because I've just been playing Stardew Valley. This game has sucked me back in like no other. There's so many other games that have come out recently that I want to play. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go play it. After I just do like one day on Stardew Valley and then I play like 10, 15 days on Stardew Valley and I'm like, oh, oops. So I just have to let myself obsess and then I'll be ready to move on. But for now, I've just been playing Stardew Valley. We picked up some takeouts for dinner tonight. Ooh. Ooh. This looks good. We're finally back on our Hospital Playlist game. Finally. We've already cried and it's been 10 minutes. Matilda is over here vibing. She's so cute. I am now gonna sit in bed and read my book. I have not too much of this book left. Things are getting rather intense, rather explosive, and I honestly can say I have no idea where this book is going. What's better than Chinese takeout? Chinese takeout the next day for lunch, everyone. Hi, it's the next day. I have 50 pages of The Familiar left. We're in the home stretch. Things are going bananas, and we're gonna sit down now and finish it together because I need to wrap this baby up, wrap this vlog up, and I also just wanna see what's gonna happen. So a little bit of a reading sprint together. Let's do it. Friends, I am happy to report I've officially finished The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I have read the entirety of this book. It is 380 pages exactly, I want to say, which I think is not too bad. I honestly read this very, very quickly, and overall, I would say I enjoyed this from beginning to end. From a conclusion point of view, the last act of this book read very, very quickly. A lot of things culminated and kind of went into some very interesting directions. Again, Leigh Bardugo continued to rely on the historical realities of the time period for the crimes and punishment of the situation in a very clever way. One thing I also liked about this book is that she does feature a lot of characters. So like, we got to experience the fate of a lot of people, not just our main character, Louisa. And I also appreciated that this book kind of continued to stay true to its darker edge, and kind of the final moments or the final things that occurred to some characters aren't necessarily all like hunky-dory or positive, or all characters kind of had a fully like 180 arc, you know, change from the course of this story. And I appreciated that things ended, but it wasn't necessarily a kind ending for everyone, but everything felt fitting at the same time too. Aspects of this sort of curse and plotline, particularly between Louisa and the main male character, maybe was like a little bit rushed. I definitely feel like this book could have been drawn out, could have been longer across the board, but I would say the shortness of the pacing was kind of consistent throughout the book, and it wasn't something that was like so not great, but I do wish that this book was maybe longer and like more things were drawn out, just given kind of the grimdark nature of the story and the stylization. I almost feel like it could have benefited from being like slower paced and kind of maybe overly long and overly flowery, or maybe that's just like my own personal preference. But I still really liked it. I breezed through this book. Definitely very vibey, definitely a great fall read. And overall, I would say for a book that I had pretty high expectations going into, I enjoyed it. And I would think I would give this like a 4 out of 5 stars. So definitely a solid pickup for sure. We love Leigh Bardugo in this house. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye.